Hi, and welcome to your Relax and Restore Yoga class. I'm Colleen, and I'll be guiding your practice today. For your practice, I recommend all your favorite props. So, a couple blocks, a bolsters and pillows, a strap, and anything else that you might like to have for your practice. To begin with, we'll be starting with a pillow to support the head, a bolster, or even a blanket roll or a towel rolled up into a little cylindrical form here, and a couple blocks. We'll begin laying onto our backs, placing the blocks underneath the knees to create a little bend into the knees. This will help to take some of the pressure off the low back. And then once you low back, you can position the bolster right underneath the mid and upper back. And then reach for your pillow, place it right underneath the head and neck to support the head and neck. And then check in with how this feels. If it's a little too intense, you could always skip the bolster or the blanket roll altogether. And then otherwise, you can play around with the position of the hands. So you might like the hands a little bit alongside the hips, out to the side. You can even stretch the arms overhead, just depending on how this feels in the chest and the shoulders. You might even add a little scoop of the hips just to experiment with creating more length through the low back. And then once you've found a sweet spot where you can remain, take a moment to blink the eyes closed. Begin to direct your mind's attention into the rhythm and the cadence of the breath. Notice the fullness of the inhale. Feel the depth of the exhale. And all of the spaces in between. Check in with all that is present for you physically. Is there anything that needs care and tending to today? And what of the mind? Is it quiet and contemplative? Is it running wild with thought? How are you feeling energetically? And as you gather this information, create an intention for yourself, a word or several words to remind you of all that you're calling in and all that you aim to nourish within this time here today. And with a little imagination, envision these words or your word being placed into the vessel of the breath so that every breath you breathe continuously bathes you with all that you're calling in and all that you're nourishing within. As you continue to breathe here, can you notice the wave-like movement in the body that's created by the breath? Can you feel the body expand as the breath rolls and crests its way through you on the inhale? And can you feel the wave of breath retreat out of you upon the exhale? As you breathe in, you might notice initially the abdomen, the ribs, and then eventually the breath to surface all the way to the center of the heart. And as you exhale, feeling everything begin to shrink and soften back in. Feel as the wave of breath moves in, expanding your abdomen, your ribs, your chest. Feel the wave of breath move out of the chest, the ribs, and the abdomen. Continue to breathe for another 3 to 5 more breaths. Leave the count to me. Just simply rest and breathe. Moving at a snail's pace. If the arms are extended overhead or wide out to the side, bring them a little closer by your hips, by your sides, or even the palms can rest onto your ribs or belly. Then bend the knees, walk the feet in, and take your sweet time and gently roll to your right or left side. Once you arrive, press your way up into seated momentarily. Here you can set the bolster off to the side and then return onto your back. If you wish, you can keep the pillow underneath the head or you can set it aside as well. Then reach for one of your blocks. You can slide them up. With the knees bent, place the feet onto the floor and then lift your hips skyward and slide your block right underneath your seat. Ideally, you want to position the block a little closer to the heels than the shoulders so that it's not in the small of the low back. In fact, it's supporting more of the sacrum. Then as a little self-adjustment, walk your shoulder blades a little closer together so that it's almost like they're cradling the back of your heart. This might help to prop up the heart slightly and to continue to accentuate a slight lift to the mid and upper back, expansion of the heart. And it also helps to reintegrate the shoulder blades onto the back body. Once you settle in, notice if there's anything that needs to change. For me, sometimes a little kink in the low back can creep up. So the slight lift of the hips, scoop the hips back under, and then set them back down usually helps to alleviate that sensation. And then from there, allow the eyes to softly close. And once again, turn your gaze inward. Notice the breath. Feel it expand you each time you breathe in. Feel it soften you each time you breathe out. Now that you've been here for a couple moments, option to stay exactly as you are. Or if you wish, you can begin to extend one leg and then the next overhead. You can play around with the position of the feet. See if there's a sweet spot where the body is inviting you to stay, where there's no tug, no effort to the front of the hips, no effort at all. Taking pressure off the legs, draining any tension. You can even play around with a little bit of movement from the ankles, rolling out the ankles, pointing and flexing the feet a couple times. Notice if the low back, if the spine has started to round towards the earth. See if you can lift through the mid and upper back while simultaneously keeping the low back long. A slight drawing of the low belly in and out can help to support the low back and spine. Begin to release the feet to the floor. Take a couple moments to pause there and just simply notice the after image in the body. What is present for you physically, energetically, mentally, emotionally. You're recalling and reminding yourself of your intention, all that you aim to nourish within, all that you're calling in. Exploring each posture, its variation and depth, as though it was a reflection of your intention. Ground into your feet. Lift your hips skyward, reach for your block and slide it out from underneath your hips. And carefully slide your hips back to the mat. Take a moment here to toe heel the feet wide and allow the knees to slightly knock inward. Cactus the arms here so that the elbows are parallel to the shoulders. A passive way of allowing gravity to unravel any tension from the heart, from the chest. So heel the feet back to hip width apart now and cross your right ankle over the left thigh. Take a moment here to simply rock the hips a little bit left and right. Each time you rock the hips a little further left and right, let them rock a little bit further. until the legs rock all the way over to the left side. Several options here for you. You could remain in the figure four shape. That's my favorite. What I love about this posture is it creates a release to the outer hip as well as working into the QL. So you might be feeling this in the lower or the right side of the low back, simultaneously receiving a twist through the mid and upper back. And as little self-adjustment, you can lift the left rib slightly up and over to the left side. Then your choice, you can have the gaze neutral to the left or to the right, just depending on what feels best in the body. If the right foot doesn't come all the way to the floor, that's where you can take your block and place it underneath your right foot. Or if you love shoelace, this is where you can intertwine the legs. So let the right thigh tuck all the way around the left and let both knees fall towards the earth, as opposed to your figure four, where the right knee is still pointed upward and to the sky. Settle your awareness back into the breath. Feel the inhale flood into the right side waist, how the right side waist expands to accommodate the breath in. Feel it soften as you exhale. Follow this next breath all the way out. Upon the exhale, bottom of the breath, draw your low belly in and up. Then return the hips and legs back to center. Take a moment to unravel the right leg. Knees can be bent or you can stretch them long, and just notice how you feel right side compared to the left. If one side feels longer, more open. And then cross your left ankle on top of the right and take a moment to then just rock the hips a little bit left and right, back and forth. Without any urgency, rock the hips a little more from side to side, gaining a little more range with each rock from side to side. And then eventually allow the legs to rock to the right side. Here, the left foot might come to the floor and you could remain here. For me, my left side is much tighter than the right. And so if you find that to be the case for you, or if you're looking for ways to integrate props here, by placing a block onto the floor, underneath the left foot, this can be a way to kind of fill in the gaps with props. Little self-adjustment of lifting your right ribs up and over to the right side, then gazing to the left. And of course, if you're taking the variation of shoelace, you could intertwine the legs entirely and let the legs fall entirely to the right side, either onto a block or onto the floor, your choice. So taking the variation of your choosing, and then settling into the shape, letting the eyes close and returning your attention back into the breath once again. Notice if the breath has shallowed in any way. And if so, enliven it. Follow it curiously to the very top. And follow it very curiously to the very bottom. Feel the body expand with breath. Feel the body soften as it empties. And how there's a whole myriad of movement, even as you abide in stillness. And now begin to slowly follow the breath out. Draw low belly in and up and rock your hips, your legs back to center. Unravel the left leg, stretch it long, or keep the knees bent and simply notice how you feel. If there's a greater sense of balance, anything that may have shifted. While laying here, reach for your strap, walk the feet in momentarily, then place your strap across the right foot. Wrap the strap a couple times around the hands, create a solid anchor. And then your choice, you can keep the left leg bent or the knee bent, or you can straighten the left leg long. I find that with the left knee bent, there's little added stability. With it long, I get a good stretch through the front of the left hip, so you can play around, see which feels best in your body. They both have their benefits. Now, if the low back has flattened out, reestablish the natural curve of the low back and spine by just creating a subtle arc, almost like a little pea could roll right underneath. Flex the right ankle slightly, leave a light micro bend in the right leg, but at the same time, slightly press the right thigh bone away from you and notice the sensation through the back of the right leg. Notice where it's most present. And then reestablish the cadence of the breath here. Breathe in full. Breathe out empty. Allow the cadence of the breath, the experience of breathing to captivate the mind. If the sensation has dissipated, explore a little more range. This could be as simple as nudging the right thigh bone a little further away or reaching the toes a little further towards or the back of your space or overhead. Even a slight flexion of the ankle of allowing the toes to peer closer to the nose, stretching the right heel skyward might also bring a little more sensation and release through the back of the right ankle, the right calf and Achilles. Just another 4 or 5 more breaths here. And now gather the strap into the right hand and guide the right leg over to the right side. Here you could even place a block to the outer right leg if you wish. Left hand could come to the left hip, guiding it more towards the earth so that there isn't any pull or twist from the hips or low back and spine. Instead, isolating the opening, the release to the right inner groin. Little bit of a shorter hold here, just 4 or 5 more breaths. Last full breath in here and a full breath out. And now guide the right leg back overhead. Switch the strap into the left hand. Bring your right thumb to your right hip crease. Guide the right hip slightly down. And then begin to guide your right leg about 2/3 of the way over to the left. If you feel any tweak to the low back, rewind the shape to where that sensation is alleviated and then pause there. Imagine you could wedge your right heel to the upper left corners of your room and at the same time get a little heavier to your right hip. Insist on, again, on a little micro bend in the right knee still. Breathe in deeply. Breathe out sweetly. Begin to then guide the right leg back overhead, reach the toes over the nose, slip the strap off the right foot, and with care and ease, slowly lower the right leg to the floor, stretch the left leg long alongside it. And notice how you feel right side compared to the left. And then evening everything out, walk the feet back in, start with the knees bent, place the strap over your left foot. Reach your left foot skyward, wrap the strap around the hands. And then again, play around with whether you prefer to have the right knee bent or prefer to stretch the right leg long. Assess the curvature of the low back and spine. Does anything need to shift or change? Relax the shoulders, flex your left ankle, slightly nudge the left thigh bone away from you while simultaneously drawing your left toes towards the space overhead. And settle into the breath. And if sensation has dissipated, explore a little more range. You can even inch the toes overhead a little further, or a slight nudge of the left thigh bone away from you while keeping a slight micro bend of the knee. Or even experiment with inching the left heel a little higher than the toes. See how that feels. What sensation can you create and how can you soften it? Take the strap now into the left hand and begin to guide the left leg open to the left side. Here you can even bring your right hand again to the right hip so that if the right hip is starting to lift off and twist over to the left side, you can always ground it back down. Breathe in. Soften as you breathe out again. Guide the left leg back overhead. Switch the strap into the right hand now and begin to guide the right leg about 2/3 of the way over to the right side. Left thumb to the left hip crease to encourage the left hip to anchor. And then pause there. And then guide your left leg back overhead. Reach the toes over the nose momentarily. And then slip the left foot or the strap off the left foot and lower the left side alongside the right. And take a moment to simply notice how you feel. From there, set your strap off to the side, hug both knees deep into the chest and give yourself a great big squeeze. You can rock a little from side to side if you wish. And then rock up and down the length of the spine a couple times till you find your way to seated. Once you make your way to seated, reach for your block, come to kneeling, and place your block underneath your seat. Now, if you decide you want a little more lift or a little more support, you could always lift the block a little bit higher or shift it to a higher setting or put a second block underneath. This posture has many benefits and that helps to lengthen out the front of the shins. So if you've been doing lots of walking, running, or have any tension through the front of the shins, any shin splints, this will help to alleviate some of that tension. And then reach for your strap once again. Take a wide hold of your strap, so wider than your shoulders, till you feel a little stretch through the front of the chest as you simultaneously reach and stretch the arms back. Take a couple moments to pause once you find a good amount of sensation. Reach just a little further back. When you find a little more sensation, pause till that sensation dissipates. Reach a little further back and explore at your own rate. Reach as far back as you can reach, and then widen the grip a little bit until the arms can circle all the way back. And then we'll do that a couple times. So we'll draw the arms up and overhead, reach the arms forward, circling the joint, reach the arms up and overhead, arms just stretch back. And again, you can always widen the grip a little bit more. One more times, just like that, extending the arms forward and then circling them back. This helps to expand the chest and shoulders, and it also moves the upper arm bone in and around the shoulder socket. So this helps to stimulate synovial fluid in the shoulder joint, which just helps to increase the viscosity of the joint so that there is less friction, therefore less inflammation. One more time. So the next time the arms reach all the way back, you can just simply set your strap off to the side. Extend the arms towards the earth, palms facing forward, telescope up and out of the crown. Then take the right ear towards the right shoulder. Notice if the right shoulders come up to meet the ear and encourage the shoulders to soften once again. Option here to take the right hand to the side of the head and neck just to create a little more traction. Otherwise, you can just let the right hand release onto the thigh now. Experiment here with taking the left hand a little bit further back or even reaching it towards the bottom left corners of your room. You can even play around with the positioning of the hands. I always find the more I tilt the thumb and index finger, the deeper the sensation and release through the side of the head and neck. Breathe in and see if you can feel the left collarbone lift and expand up and outward at the top of the inhale. Notice what softens as you exhale. And keep the head in the same position. Now spin the palm towards the back of the space so the thumb spins down and tuck your hand behind the low back. Let the shoulders soften and allow the head and neck to shift diagonally forward till you feel a little sensation start to move now into the back of the left shoulder. Move gently, carefully, not chasing any grand sensations. When you find a little sensation, pause there, let it dissipate. And once it dissipates, explore a little more range. Breathe continuously till you feel the right shoulder area expand. Breathe out and feel everything soften. Keep your right or your left arm exactly as it is. Bring your right hand just below your left collarbone. Press into the flesh and draw it slightly down. Then gently telescope up and out of the head and neck and tilt the head slightly up and back while keeping it slightly tilted to the right side. Chances are you'll feel a little sensation through the front left side of the neck, maybe even into the chest or the front of the shoulder. Once you find a little more sensation, breathe in, breathe out, rinse, repeat until the sensation dissipates. Breathe it in, breathe it out. And 3 more breaths just like that. With care, release both hands. Allow the chin to roll towards the chest and take a moment to pause there. Shift your weight forward momentarily. Come onto your fists, your knees. You can even roll out the ankles a couple times. And then just simply set your bowl or your block off to the side, curl your toes under, and sit your hips back towards your heels. Begin to shift your shoulders on top of your hips, and then just notice what is present for you in your feet. If this feels really intense, you're not alone. I'm screaming on the inside. And so if it's unsustainable, just notice that. And then simply come out of the pose a little bit by either tilting the torso forward or lifting up and off the hips a little bit. You can kind of play around with where is a place where you're going to feel a generous amount of sensation, but you can also breathe for about a minute. And then once you've found that spot, close your eyes or steady the gaze and return your attention into the breath. If it feels intense, just know that that's perfectly normal. If you're not feeling enough sensation or much sensation, draw the heels a little closer together. Again, you can always pitch your weight a little further forward. You can always lift your hips a little higher. And so what we're doing is we're working into the fascia of the feet, particularly into the plantar fascia. And when this fascia becomes really tight, it affects everything else in the body. First, the Achilles, the lower leg, and then it just works its way up. So by stretching out and releasing the feet, it can help to release everything in the body. So we're here for 3 more breaths. Just see how relaxed you can be inside these breaths. And then shift forward, come onto your fists and gently uncurl your toes. You can create a few little circles, pat out the top of the feet, swing the legs a little left and right, and then reach for your block and place it underneath your seat. After all that, you might like the block a little higher. And then reach both hands towards the earth, palms facing forward. Telescope up and out of the crown, and then take your left ear towards the left shoulder. You can stay exactly as you are, or take the left hand to the outside of the head and neck, or you can just let the left hand rest onto your thighs. Experiment with the right hand reaching towards the earth, towards the bottom right corners of the room. What's it like to tilt the thumb and index finger more towards the floor? Just knowing that there's no perfect shape, there's no exact position to put yourself in, and that really it's about feeling your way into a desired shape, a shape, a depth that is in alignment with your intention rather than any image of what you think it might need to look like. The breath has shallowed, enliven it again. Breathe in and breathe out again. And now flip the right hand to the back of the space, thumbs down, tuck the hand behind the low back. Then begin to experiment with drawing the head diagonally forward till you find a little more sensation into the back of the shoulder in addition to the side of the neck. Reestablish the natural cadence of the breath. Breathe in until you notice not only the collarbone expanding, but also the back of the right shoulder expanding. And then bring your left hand just below your right collarbone. Press into the flesh, draw it slightly down. This creates a little anchor. Tilt the head slightly up and back, a little release to the front of the neck. Again, no need to effort, push or prod your way into a bigger shape. Just find the sensation. Pause there and breathe till it dissipates. Breathe in more fully. Breathe out more fully. Your entire focus anchored in the breath. Last big breath in. Full breath out. Release both hands and allow the chin to gently roll towards the center of the chest. Take a moment to pause there. And then return the head back upright. A few little circle rolls with the arms, integrating the shoulders back onto the back body. If there's any other little movement, perhaps a roll of the wrist, feel free to do so. And then shift your weight forward, roll out the ankles a couple times. You can even stretch one leg back and then the other. And then we'll move into sleeping swan. So here you can have your bolster handy. From coming in from all fours, place your right knee behind the right wrist, set your right shin at about a 45-degree angle, give or take. I like a little cushion to the outer hip. So here's where you could use another pillow or bolster or even a block. Level off the hips. You can even rock the hips a little from side to side. And then begin to fold forward into the support of your bolster. You can also use blocks underneath the forearms. I also really love this variation here. You can experiment with figure 4, deer pose, or any other little variation of this here if the props are not giving you all the support that you need. And take note of where else you might be able to relax inside this shape. It could be as simple as softening the shoulders down the back of the spine, unraveling any tension of the jaw, perhaps wiggling it from side to side, or letting go of a thought that seems to cycle back time and time again through the mind. Just set it adrift each time it arrives. And then rise all the way back up. Unravel the right leg, either swing forward or stretch it back. Feel free to play with any little counter movements, any little counter stretches in between. Return back to neutral table and eventually make your way to your left side. Place your left knee behind the left wrist, left shin at about a 45-degree angle, give or take. Once again, slide the right leg back, think level hips here, and then option for a little cush underneath the left hip. Blocks underneath the forearms, or you could lay all the way forward into the support of your bolster. Last full breath in here. And last full breath out. And then gently rise back up onto the hands. Remove any props from underneath. Again, you can press back or you might even extend both legs forward, letting them relax and release. And then set yourself up for Shavasana. Here you could have a block underneath, a set of blocks underneath the knees. You can use your bolster underneath the knees if you wish, a little cushion, a pillow underneath the head. You might prefer to lay prone onto your belly, really great for your discs in your low back. Make sure that you feel comfortable of like the shape was the essence of a hug, something that you can fall into and rest into. Let the eyelids get heavy, like little blankets tucking you in. Feel the weight of your bones, your body. Let it go until you feel weightless. Surrender any hats you wear, roles you play, any definition of body or mind. All that remains is the essence of you, perfect, whole, and complete as you are right here, right now. Just rest and breathe. Om. Namo. 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 Anjani Nam. Naya. Jai Sitaram, Jai Jai Baba Hanuman. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Begin to deepen back into the breath. Feel yourself awaken and come alive again, back into the present moment. Take a big old stretch, extend the arms overhead, roll out the ankles and feet, reach into the toes. And then eventually hug your knees into your chest. A warm embrace, a gentle squeeze. And rock up and down the length of the spine or off to the side, and eventually make your way into seated. From seated, bring your hands to your heart center or into prayer. And take this opportunity to acknowledge yourself, the you that showed up on his or her mat today. Recall your intention and how you feel right here in this moment. Invite any life or lessons off your mat into your life, all the days ahead as you live through your practice. Thank you so much for being here. Namaste.